You'll never believe what I saw last night. There was this creature in my backyard. Ugly thing. Didn't look natural. Then when I turned on the floodlights, wait a second. Who are you guys? What are you doing in my... What is that? What are you gonna... What was I saying? Funny. I don't remember. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Men in Black. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and joining me in the co-host chair are the two men who helped me decide that this movie is one of the best comic book movies of the 90s. First up, he's our very own Agent K, the wise and seasoned veteran of all things movie-related. From the 80s Flick Flashback podcast, it's Tim Williams.
You know the difference between me and you is? I make this look good.
Or do you?
I'm trying. I'm trying. I didn't put my sunglasses on for that part.
Uh-oh. And next up, from Pop Culture Roulette, he likes his water with a little extra sugar. Please welcome Nicholas Pepin.
See?
Okay.
See?
By the way, can I say it? I mean, we're gonna probably jump around. We always do.
We always do.
When Jay and Kay go to visit Edgar's wife, and she gives them the lemonade, and you see Jay's face react because it doesn't have any sugar in it. I love that it's just in there. Like they don't say anything, they don't reference anything.
Right.
I don't even know how many times I've seen that movie until I finally picked up on that scene. I know it wasn't. It wasn't the first time I watched it. It was just like it was more recently. I was like, oh, she's out of sugar, so that's why.
Yeah. So that's why he puckers up and then spits it out because it is just straight lemon juice.
Right.
What it is. So yeah, we are talking about Men in Black, which came in second of our 90s bracket from about a month ago. Of course, Blade, the one that won, Nicholas and I had already done. So we decided, hey, let's do this one. Let's do Men in Black. So here we are. I will ask you guys, do you regret the decision yet? Or are we still good with Blade?
I'm still good with Blade winning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Men in Black was released July 2nd, 1997, back when Will Smith owned the Independence Day weekend.
Yep.
4th of July weekend. This was, I didn't look up the dates, but I know Independence Day obviously came out around this time. Then he had Bad Boys. Not sure if Bad Boys came out around this time, but he would get this one. This would be like his third big blockbuster movie. And then, of course, the sequels. And then there was Wild Wild West, which I think ended his Independence Day domination.
He had a long streak of box office hits that, I mean, Wild Wild West didn't help him, but it didn't hurt.
Right.
Like, I mean,
he bounced back pretty quick. Yeah.
He dominated the box office for a long time. It's only been in the last few years that his movies have failed to make the kind of money that they used to make.
Yeah, he trailed off. I mean, it's been a while since he's had a hit movie. He's still, I think the 90s.
Oh, he had a really big hit about a year ago.
I see what you did there. But like, I think, the 90s were definitely his prime, and even maybe the early 2000s. But I think by the time you got to like the 2010s to now, I guess maybe he just wasn't working. They weren't coming out as often. So.
No, I think that's because I know him and Tom Cruise had like one of the longest stretches of like $100 million movies or when $100 million was a lot of money for
right, for box office.
But like there was a long stretch where it was like if you want a bankable movie, you get Tom Cruise or you get Will Smith.
Yeah.
Now neither one of them seem to be bankable, but I guess Tom Cruise is still pretty bankable.
I was about to say, Tom Cruise still has the Mission Impossible movies he's pushing out there.
Yeah. But yeah, this was during the time when I think it was, they said that Will Smith was the king of summer and Tim Allen was the king of Christmas because pretty much every
Santa
Christmas
Claus.
there was a Santa Claus movie that he was coming out with, and then the following summer there was another Will Smith movie coming out with. So,
And much
so now you got me looking. So we've got the 90s here. We've got, of course, Independence Day and Bad Boys. Bad Boys was 95. Independence Day was 96.
okay,
The Men in Black was 97. And then in 98, he had Enemy of the State.
that was big.
Yeah. 99 was Wild Wild West.
which was big, not good, but
It made
big.
it made money, but it didn't have the sustaining power at the box office as the other ones.
Yeah, then 2000, I think a lot of people forget this one, The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah.
2001 was his Oscar-nominated Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Then Men in Black 2 and 02.
Right.
Bad Boys 2 and 03. I, Robot and Shark Tale in 04. We got Hitch in 05. I just realized this man made one movie a year. So Hitch in 05, Pursuit of Happiness in 06, I Am Legend in 07. Now, 2008, he had both Hancock and 7 Pounds.
Yeah, which didn't do as well.
Then there's a gap, and not until 2012 where you get Men in Black 3.
Right.
Then then
Earth.
2013 is After Earth.
Yeah.
There's where it tanked right there.
Yeah, because
And I mean, really, that's where it tanked, because you got After Earth, Winter's Tale, Focus, Concussion, Suicide Squad, Collateral Beauty.
Yep. Then he jumped to Netflix
for Bright.
Right.
Then over to Disney for Aladdin. Then he thought, hey, you know what? I'll do another weird sci-fi movie, and did Gemini Man. And we got voice work with Spies in Disguise. Then Bad Boys for Life in 2020. And then, of course, King Richard in 21 and Emancipation in 22.
I mean, I know this is not we're talking about Men in Black, but why in the world would you call Bad Boys 3 Bad Boys for Life?
Yeah. I don't know. Why do they name the Fast and Furious movies the way they do?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And not ever for this one. So let's get back to Men in Black. So again, released July 2nd, 1997, and to follow Tim with his podcast. Did you guys see this one in theaters?
Absolutely.
I think Nicholas and I saw this in theaters together, probably.
Well, you said it was an Independence Day release?
Yeah.
Yeah, July 2nd.
Okay, so we probably...
maybe not.
Yeah, I might have seen that one up in the DC area. Although, given back then the movies used to last in theaters a lot longer, it's entirely possible that when we got back to school, we all went
and saw it. Yeah. I think I was doing like the summer semester that year, so I know I went to the movies with a group, but I guess you weren't a part of that. But yeah.
No, I never did a summer semester. I do remember us all going to the drive-in for Independence Day.
Ooh, you saw it at the drive-in. That's sweet.
I mean, that was like the second time I had seen it, but yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing a couple movies at the drive-in back then. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw this one in theaters. I know for a fact I saw Independence Day. But this one, I don't know. I think it's maybe, to be honest, probably because I've seen it so many times. I think I may have forgotten whether I've saw it in the theaters or not.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just know that there's no way that Will Smith making a movie about aliens with, Tommy Lee Jones, there was no way I didn't go see this in the theaters.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought that Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones would have worked?
I mean, clearly Barry Sonnenfeld, but...
Yeah.
I mean, it works. It works great.
It works amazingly.
Yeah.
And this now, we'll get into this. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more of the movie. So you just mentioned directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who, for people who don't know, he was originally the cinematographer for the Coen brothers, and then he became a director himself. Of course, he directed The Addams Family, both Addams Family and Addams Family Values. He would, of course, direct all of the trilogy of Men in Black. He didn't direct international.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also jumped over to TV. So I did not know this until I looked it up. He's the guy behind the Patrick Warburton Tick television show, and I'm very excited to now know that.
Yeah, one of my favorite shows. Yeah,
he's also executive producer and directed episodes of Netflix's series of Unfortunate Events, and directed and I think executive producer as well of Schmigadoon on Apple.
Oh yeah,
I've been told numerous times I should watch that, but I don't have Apple, so one of these days I'll get it.
Kind of hinders, yeah.
One of these days I'll get it and I'll watch it.
I will say I do think Apple is probably the cheapest streaming service,
but it's also
nowadays.
Probably the one that I watch the least.
Oh, I agree.
Which is why every time I've got it for free, I burn through Ted Lasso and Mythic Quest, and then I cancel it.
Yeah. That's about all I've seen. We watched Schmigadoon, we watched Ted Lasso, and I haven't seen any others. I watched a couple of the movies on there, like the Tom Hanks World War II movie. I think I watched on there. But anyway,
I'm the same. I think there's stuff on there I probably would enjoy watching. Yeah, it's one I don't think of.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
So, but what are your thoughts on Barry Sonnenfeld and him? Is he the Wish version of Tim Burton, or
I don't.
You give him more credit than that.
Well, I think he has his own style. I'm sure there's some Burton-esque influence there, but he doesn't have the same longevity, I think, as Burton does.
Oh, he definitely didn't. I mean, once he made Wild Wild West, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, because the only things that I really associate him with is the Men in Black movies. Like, I wouldn't have thought about Addams Family and Addams Family Values as being his movies.
No, because are you like me? Do you think of those as Tim Burton movies, even though they're not?
I mean, they definitely have a Tim Burton feel, but
yeah. But I think that's just the material, though.
But doesn't even the opening sequence of this movie feel like Tim Burton?
I was going to ask about that. There was something so familiar about the opening credits. Not necessarily the dragonfly flying around, but just the lettering.
Yeah.
Like, where I couldn't find anything about it, so I'm hoping that maybe between the three of us we can come up with it. Why does that lettering seem so familiar to me?
I don't know. I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I think I have always thought that. It's like, I've seen this somewhere before. And I don't know if I've ever been able to place it. I don't know if it's from like a TV show. The credits are in similar font. I don't know if there's another movie out there. I really don't know, but I definitely know what you're saying.
Yeah, when I watched it again, I kind of had the same thought. I was like, maybe this was the first time I saw it, and we've seen it so many times. Like, it's a font that you can find on most computer programs now, or word processing, or making documents, whatever. So maybe that's why I think it might not have been as common when it first came out, but it's become more common now.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
but it has that kind of spidery. It does have a kind of a Tim Burton like.
I mean, I can definitely see where people would think that Sonnenfeld has a Tim Burton influence, but I would say, like, Men in Black, the movie as a whole doesn't really, other than a couple things here or there, for the most part, don't feel very Tim Burton.
I agree. Yeah.
No, yeah.
But that opening sequence is the main connection, right. And it doesn't help that the score is done by Danny Elfman.
Yeah, I was gonna say I knew the score definitely felt very familiar.
Who pretty much has done all Tim Burton's movies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to talk about a guy who owned cinema for a while, like we were talking about Will Smith. Let's talk about Danny Elfman's run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, that we'd forget, we wouldn't be able to talk about the rest of this movie if we started going down that rabbit hole.
Oh no. But I mean, just Batman. That's where all Batman.
Right.
The man composed Batman. Like, well. All right, so it was written by Ed Solomon. Now, Tim, are you familiar with Ed Solomon?
I feel like I should, but
yes, you should. So Ed Solomon is the co-writer of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, see, I'm not a huge Bill and Ted fan, so that's not going to jump out to me as much. I know Nicholas is.
Nicholas is a big fan?
I love Bill and Ted. I love all three of them. I mean, I know that they are increasingly bad, but Bill and Ted Face the Music. I still love that movie. I mean, it was fun.
Ed Solomon also wrote Now You See Me.
Oh, okay. I like those movies, the magician movies.
One of these days I'll watch that.
Oh yeah,
hey, it's a good one.
It is.
I'll give you that.
Very good.
So pretty good if you ask me. Pretty good writing credits there, and of course it is based off of a comic book titled The Men in Black. It does have the in front of it. Written by Lowell Cunningham, who we do see in the opening credits. They get a nice, based on the Marvel comic, Lowell Cunningham. However, it was not a Marvel comic until like right before this movie was made. It was released by a company called Aircell, so Aircell Comics, which was then bought by Malibu Comics, which people might be a little bit more familiar with, and then Marvel acquired Malibu Comics in the mid 90s. So it was like as this movie is getting made, Marvel took custody. But Lowell Cunningham would continue as the writer of the comic even once Marvel acquired it, and when Marvel decided to adapt it to fit the movie, when they released some kind of one-shots that actually featured the J&K from the movie versus from the original story. The illustrator of the original comic, Sandy Carruthers, to my knowledge, did not continue once Marvel came in. But there are only 6 issues of the original Men in Black comic. So there were 3 issues released in 1990, and then there were 3 issues that came out a year later in 91, which, funny enough, are titled The Men in Black 2. But those were the comics that this was based on, and I will say loosely based on, but we'll get into that. Let's get into the characters. So we have Agent K, played by Tommy Lee Jones. I have shown both Tim and Nicholas the the cover of the Men in Black comic, and so you might not be surprised by this, but do you know the studio actually wanted Clint Eastwood?
I can see that.
Okay.
A grumpy old man. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, and in the comic, he'd fit perfectly. Then we've got Agent J, played by Will Smith, and you ready for this one? The studio wanted Chris O'Donnell.
Wow.
Mm.
Talking about someone they were trying to push on us in the 90s.
Yeah, very much so. It's not that he's terrible.
He was Robin. That's what.
Yeah, but I mean, what else did he do? That
Three Musketeers.
How did he become
The Bachelor?
Yeah, but like, what was the Three Musketeers like his first movie role?
Scent of a Woman, right?
Oh, it was in Scent of a Woman. Yeah, maybe that was his breakthrough.
They really pushed him, and I think Robin really just destroyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was really big and everywhere for a while, and then I feel like he just disappeared until he showed back up on TV.
Yeah,
on NCIS.
Yeah.
L.A.
Yeah. NCIS Los Angeles. Yeah. So the story goes is that the studio wanted Chris O'Donnell, and Barry Sonnenfeld had a phone call, had dinner. I don't know, but actually talked him out of accepting it.
Good old Barry. Way to go, Barry. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, to say that was the right choice. I don't know if we're talking about this movie. I mean, I don't dislike Chris O'Donnell. I don't. I mean, other than Batman or Robin, I don't know if I've ever been like, wow, he's the problem in this movie. But I just don't think this movie
fit him,
and I definitely don't think it hits the same without Will Smith taking that role.
Yeah.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Then we've got Dr. Laura Weaver, played by Linda Fiorentino.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar, played brilliantly by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Absolutely.
I did find out that role was also offered to John Turturro and Bruce Campbell.
Ooh.
I think any of those guys. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from Vincent D'Onofrio, but I think both Turturro and Campbell would have delivered something great in that role as well.
Turturro would have been my third choice, only because I think he can get overly campy, i.e., any of the Transformer movies that he was in. But yeah, Bruce Campbell would have been a good second choice.
I say this with all love of Bruce Campbell. I have his books. I've seen almost every movie that he's been in. But if you want to talk about campy,
well, yeah.
He is the king of the B-movie actors.
What was that Brain movie? The Screaming Brain?
Yes.
Yeah, that one was.
Yes.
That was so bad, but so good.
Yes.
I mean,
but I think with Campbell, it's a little tongue in cheek, his campiness. Like it's kind of a wink to the camera, like, oh, don't you see me being campy? With the Turturro, he just wants to be as campy as possible, just to be outrageous. So
I can see that. Yeah, that's an argument that I will live with. Or
I also think Turturro probably would have done it similar to D'Onofrio. Campbell would have been a completely different character.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that wholehearted.
All right, then we've got Zed, played by the late great Rip Torn.
Yep.
And then I can't not mention Jack Jeebs, played by Tony Shalhoub.
Of course.
And then I also, for you, Tim, wanted to mention that Frank the Pug is voiced by Tim Blaney, who is also the voice of Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and ask. So of the cast, and that was pretty much all of them, unless you want to also mention Edgar's wife, but who do you want to see again, and who do you wish would be erased from your memory with a neuralizer?
I mean, if I had to pick somebody to erase, because they surely did a good job of it themselves, Linda Fiorentino.
I agree. I'll jump in and say it now. I agree.
I don't have any problem.
Was pointless.
I don't have any problems with her. She did a fine job with what little she was given. And I have enjoyed her in a lot of other stuff, but like they really just were like, we have to throw in something to I don't
do.
Yeah. I don't know why they felt the need to shoehorn in another character, but they did.
We need a female character. We need
right. I can honestly say when I was rewatching this, I forgot that she was actually in the movie. Like when I think about Men in Black, I never think of her character in this movie.
I can tell you the only reason I remember her character is because once she becomes an agent, they carried that into the animated series.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So that's why she was there.
And so there was Agent L in the animated series.
Right. But yeah, I would agree with you. She's the only one I wouldn't want to see return. But the one that I want to see more of, I love Tony Shalhoub. I thought he was great. And he's got, his part's really, really minor in the movie. But everybody else is so perfectly cast. I love Rip Torn as Zed. You've already talked about Vincent as Edgar is just, cream of the crop. And then Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith worked really well together, which you didn't think was going to work, and it did. So.
No, again, on paper, that should not have worked.
I do want to mention that the van driver was played by John Grease, who was the Wolfman in Monster Squad. So I had to throw in an 80s reference there for you.
Uncle Rico.
Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Although whenever I see him, I still think of, and I cannot remember his character's name, but there was a show in the late 90s called The Pretender.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show.
I loved that
UPN.
Yeah. I loved that show. So whenever I think of that show, and then I think of other stuff that he was in. But.
Yeah. Yep. He was also in Real Genius in the 80s as well. Smaller part.
But yeah, no, I agree. The Dr. Laurel character, she's just pointless. Like, I did not get what was the...
Yeah, she was really only there to be... Because you kind of knew Tommy Lee Jones was going to retire at the end. So she was kind of shoehorned in to be, the next...
Jay's partner.
Yeah, the next new recruit at the end. But it is very well shoehorned into the plot where she's really not needed. But that's the only reason she's there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that ending really quick since you brought it up. So they of course do the K choosing to have his memory wiped away. we of course know he comes back for the sequel.
Right.
So that's my problem. He comes back for the sequel, but at the end of this movie, not only is Jay now, a established agent, and he now has Elle as his partner, but they also have new glasses. He's wearing a completely different suit. But when the sequel comes up, we're just going to ignore all that. We're going to go back to the Ray-Bans. We're going to go back to the shirt and tie.
Oh, yeah.
But how 90s was that suit he's wearing at the end?
Very 90s.
He's got to bring his flair and his style to it at that point.
Yeah, how 90s was everything Will Smith wore before he put on.
Yeah, that outfit before he became
Yes.
K, when he was just somehow an NYPD officer in whatever tracksuit he was wearing.
Right.
Well, in the opening, he's wearing like the the pants of a prison jumpsuit.
Right.
Got the orange pants. Which that's the other thing. Him saying that he ran down the alien, he didn't run down that alien. He took a bus for a good chunk of that chase. He jumped on the back of a van or a newspaper truck, which let me just point out, that truck's moving slower than he was running. So didn't quite understand that.
He had to catch his breath.
Yeah, the only thing impressive he does is when he runs up all the floors of that building. I know that's a famous building in New York, but I don't know the name of it.
Isn't it the Guggenheim?
I think it is the Guggenheim, which I'm pretty sure probably has an elevator.
I would almost guarantee that they do.
Yeah,
it's just not as exciting in a chase scene.
And I don't know why the guy didn't think he could get off the roof without jumping, considering he scaled it to get up there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to bash this movie too much, but
don't think too hard.
Yeah, if you do start thinking about some stuff, there's a lot that doesn't make sense.
Well, the fact that Kay is like, hey, you've been on the job for about a day now. Yeah. Erase my memory. You're in charge now.
Yeah, I wasn't training a partner. I was training a replacement. I was like, yeah, and you got that from 2 days worth of work.
Right.
Yeah,
he has all the instincts that you need to be a great agent. I saw it in you when I first saw you.
Okay, we'll get into some more of the scenes in a minute. Going back to the characters, so I want to talk about which ones are from the comics.
Okay.
J, K, and Zed.
That's it.
And Zed is a loose interpretation because in the comics, Zed is just a voice. We're not entirely sure if he's human. He kind of comes across as he could just be some sort of like computer program, like an AI of some sort. But that's Zed in the comic. He's not like in charge of the Men in Black. He's more of like a Jarvis. Like they kind of like you always see in the movie, Kay calling Zed and saying, "Hey Zed, we've got a, level whatever or containment and all that type of stuff." And that's all Zed is. Now Kay is similar in the comic, but in the comic Kay has no redeemable feature at all. Kay has no regard for anyone. He seems to actually enjoy punishing other people, and he looks at Jay as expendable.
Okay.
In fact, uses him several times as bait in some of the storylines. They at least gave Kay a little bit of a redeeming factor because he is not a good guy in the comic. And then Jay is a white guy with blonde hair.
It looks like Donald Trump on the cover.
That kind of looks like Donald Trump on the cover of the comic that I have. He's a DEA agent in the comic, not a New York cop.
Okay.
And we never learned his real name. So the whole Jay's real name, which I have totally forgotten at this point, it's something Edwards.
I was just looking it up because I was having a thought. It was James Darrell Edwards III.
Yes, there you go. Which appears on a computer screen only to then be deleted, but clearly that was just typed on that computer screen before it was deleted.
It deleted to then retype the letter J.
Yeah, just to have this big fancy font J on the screen.
You could have just deleted everything but the J.
So So here's some more trivia for you. So when he mentions about his finding out his third grade teacher is in fact an alien, and it shows the close up of her, it does show her location to be Philadelphia, because we all know that is where he was born and raised.
West Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only problem is most of his days.
Well, but here's the problem. So when they're going through all of his documentation, his birth certificate says he was born in New York. Then his passport was issued in Indiana.
He's been all over.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure where exactly Jay is from in this, but yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of the characters. Again, Kay is a little bit more, again, Clint Eastwood probably like, and then Jay was a really by the book DEA agent who gets wrapped up with the Men in Black, and of course, like I said, he was also a white guy. So there you go.
And it's also super convenient that his name started with J, so they could name him J, and the other agent was K, and then they were able to replace him with a lady whose name started with an L.
Oh,
so I'm super convenient.
So they're kind of like hurricanes. They all have to have a different name that starts with a different letter.
Yeah, because his old partner was D.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I love it's Z. They're using the British alphabet.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop Culture Roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, let's get into the moving panels, and I actually want to ask you guys. So we've already talked character-wise, but do you think there was anything from this movie that you suspect may have been straight from a comic?
I mean, I'm going to assume, like, certain aspects of the characters, like the neuralizer or maybe the car, or know, having an agency.
All right, so let's talk about the neuralizer. We'll talk about that first. So is the neuralizer in the comic? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But in the comic, the neuralizer looks more just like a flashlight. Like he just aims it like a flashlight. It flashes like a flashlight. I will say though, it also, like, even though it does the brainwashing, it's more of they are still able to talk while they're being under the influence.
Okay.
So it's usually how Jay, or more so K, gets information. I will say it also leads to some really just weird moments, which they kind of play around with Edgar's wife and J and K kind of arguing about what should be said and how they should be treated. But yeah, because I mean, K could, in the comic, he would flash somebody with the neuralizer and then make them, jump off a roof or something.
Oh,
K again is not nice in the comic at all. But yeah, so yeah, it looks more like a flashlight in the comic and less like something that I'm not going to say on this podcast that it does in the movie.
A long stick? Sorry.
It rhymes with stick. All right.
Sorry, I'm getting us in trouble.
So the other thing you mentioned was the car. So this is the thing about the comic. Even though they do have the neuralizer, other than that, there's not a lot of flashy and not a lot of gadgets. They do have the ability, like I talked about earlier, to talk to Zed through communication device inside the car. And I want to say there's even like a little TV inside the car. But other than that, it's just a regular car. Other than that, they kind of just use traditional weapons, shotguns and handguns, and like there's not a lot of the gadgets. And in terms of an organization, other than J and K, we don't see any of it.
Okay.
In any of the comics. I didn't read all 6. I'm going to be honest. I read the first 3. Then when I found out that the other 3 came out before the movie, I was like, well, okay, let me find the other 3. Found the other 3, got through the 4th one, and then about half of the 5th one. Because no offense to Lowell Cunningham, they're not fun to read. So I didn't get through all 6. But yeah, so no fancy cars, no fancy gadgets or anything. And then, like I said, there's really no organization other than we're just told about the Men in Black. But we don't see any other evidence other than J and K. Anything else? Tim, you got anything that you thought maybe that came straight from the comic?
I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit when we were discussing the movie about how, if you didn't know this was based on a comic book, did it feel like a comic book movie? And we kind of decided that no, it just seemed like a story and a script that they could kind of adapt to some characters from the comic. So I didn't really think of anything in the plot, kind of like Nicholas said, nothing really in the plot that I would think stood out to me. Think, oh, I bet you that came from the comic. So there was nothing that really stood out to me. I mean, there's parts of the story that I like. I mean, I like the whole Orion's belt being with
which
the
for
cat.
A little alien that can speak perfect English, how did he not know that it's called a collar and not a belt?
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'm and this is a question you normally ask, or maybe we talked about it on the bracket. I can say I don't think I knew this was a comic book going in.
Yeah, I know I didn't.
I think I kind of passed that since we had already talked about it in our bracket.
But because now when I see it like big, bold, like on the Marvel Comics present, I was like, oh, okay. But it doesn't have the standard Marvel Comics opening or a Stan Lee cameo.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, this was, this is pre-Blade.
Right.
This was kind of Marvel's first successful movie of the 90s. Because, before this...
come on now. You're going to say that Captain America wasn't successful?
Oh, my God. Yeah, because, in the 90s, you had Captain America, you had The Punisher, and you had the unreleased Fantastic Four movie. I mean, that was what Marvel had put out. And so, yeah, and you talk about, big, it's in the credits. If you're not paying any attention, which I'm sure many people don't,
right?
You don't notice it says based on the Marvel comic by Lowell Cunningham, because Lowell Cunningham's name's huge,
right?
But up there, based on the Marvel comic.
I bet more people see it now that Marvel, because in '97, Marvel would have been something that people kind of maybe knew about just because Spider-Man, Captain America, they existed and people kind of knew, but not to the level where they know them now. I bet you the people who are watching it for the first time now see that and go, ooh, where back in '97 we just were like, whatever, moving on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it wasn't something that really catched our attention. So talking a little bit more about the comic, and I will tell you there is a connection to the comic, but we'll get to it in a second. So the comic is completely different from style, everything that this movie is. So the artwork, now I own a trade back that's got all 3 of the original comics in it. But if you go to the individual comics, the artwork that I'm assuming Sandy Carruthers also did, very reminiscent of the pulp comics. You definitely know that you're going into something kind of darker with the original covers. And of course, the inside of the comic it's an entirely black and white comic, which I've talked about before with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also entirely black and white comic, and it's just dark and gloomy. Everything about this it's very, if you were to compare it to anything, it's very much like the X-Files, the actual comic, and that's not just in the tone of you've got these quote unquote government agents who are battling the supernatural, but also in that darker. But I will say this: X-Files at least had some humor in it, which the comic does not. There's no laughs. There's definitely no jokes. So what we love about Men in Black, none of that came from the source material. Absolutely not. I mean, just the recruiting of Jay. So in this movie, we've got Jay has tracked down the one alien, which has impressed Kay. He then speaks with him, and I do want to, again, not want to bash this movie a lot, but I do have to point out a few little plot points. So he flashes with the neuralizer. He flashes Jay. Then we see them eating, and then he gives him the card. So did he not erase Jay's memory? Does Jay still know what's going on? I was so confused by that scene. Like, what does Jay think he's recruiting him for? Like,
yeah, that is a good question, and I guess I never thought of it, because if you erase the memory of the alien, then he's like, what is this MIB that's wants me to go to this weird tunnel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like have a job interview, or like, why am I going here?
Yeah, that part and then of course we get the whole recruitment, which I'm gonna say the taking the test in the uncomfortable chair and then dragging the table is the greatest scene in this movie.
Yeah, it's still hilarious. Yep.
Yeah.
It is perfectly timed. The length of time that it takes him to drag it, the sound of the table going across the floor is best scene. I know it has nothing to do with really the whole plot, but is to me it's the best scene in the movie. But in the comic book, essentially Kay kidnaps Jay.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, Jay is a DEA agent. There is this drug called Berserk that is being passed around, and Jay is trying to find the source and all that. Kay ends up involved. So he essentially kidnaps Jay, though he tells Jay that he has been requisitioned. And he gives him an ultimatum. He's either, why don't you join me and join the Men in Black, or I'll erase your memory. You'll forget everything that has happened here, which will ruin months of your undercover work and completely ruin your job. And so he does that. That's the choice that Jay makes. And then he just gives him a suit out of the trunk of the car. And that's where they go from there.
And he doesn't go but I make this look good?
No.
Oh, man.
No. No. They still have the sunglasses for the neuralizer, although they also talk about their contacts that they could also choose to wear that would protect them from the neuralizer. Wouldn't look as cool, though.
But I think I'd wear maybe the contacts and the sunglasses, just to make sure I never accidentally neuralize myself.
Or when Kay is just neuralizing the corner and Jay has to quickly throw the glasses in front of his face.
Yeah.
But also in the comic, as you just kind of heard me talk about with the first issue, it's not just aliens. Again, this is very X-Files-like. They go after demons. The first one's kind of like is demon connection. It's like some cult with this berserker or berserk drug. There are zombies. There are werewolves. There's this super powered former agent. Yeah, first issue is them going up against a demonic cult with the super drug, and Lowell Cunningham even said at one point, I guess if he got to continue doing the series, he wanted them to meet Bigfoot. But that didn't ever happen. But let me talk about the one connection.
Okay.
So the second issue, which is called Encounter, is an alien, and the aliens are bug-like. They do look semi-similar to what the bug inside of Edgar eventually looks like. And we are introduced to them as they show up at a farm, and a farmer comes out with a shotgun, although his name is Horace. But here is the one connection. These words are straight from the comic book. You want my rifle? Well, you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold, dead fingers. And the alien's reply is, that is acceptable. The only difference is they don't kill him. These bugs are not as bad as the bug from the movie.
Okay.
Their interpretation of that statement is they are going to wait until Edgar dies in order to get his gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your one connection. Other than that, there's nothing. I mean, the Men in Black in the comic, they are. I mean, it's kind of what Jay thinks they are a little bit in the movie. Like, they are just brainwashing people and trying to control all sorts of, any sort of narrative. They're making sure no one knows anything about anything, but paranormal, supernatural, anything. And again, because you're getting this all from Kay, just doesn't care. And the closest you get to that is the scene in the movie where Jay is trying to get Edgar and just shooting wildly with the cricket, and then Kay, stops him and says, "We do not fire our weapons out in public," blah 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 blah, and gives him that big speech. But that's it. I'm gonna say the comic is not good. I'm not gonna recommend the comic.
So one of the rare occasions where the movie is better than the source material.
Absolutely. And Marvel couldn't even capitalize on it. I mean, like I said, they rebooted the franchise, but used the characters from in fact, I think the first issue of Marvel's Men in Black was just an adaptation of the movie. And then they did a little extra, but it didn't pick up. Like, I mean, there are no more Men in Black comics it didn't. The movies got successful, the comic did not.
Gotcha.
Any other thoughts before we give our final decisions here? Any scenes you want to talk about? Since again, there's nothing related to the comic.
There's a lot of just fun little scenes here and there, but I remember seeing in the theater going, I can't wait to watch this when I rent it when I get it home so I can pause it to see all of the people on the screen, because they had like Spielberg and
Newt Gingrich. Let's talk about you mean the most 90s references?
Yes,
right.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, and then they even make a reference to Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, at the very end.
Yeah.
I even like the one to Elvis when he talks about, Yeah. Elvis is dead, right? He is not dead. He just went home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the cool, like, I remember rewatching it. I was like, I should pause this and go back and like kind of pick out everybody in the different screens, whatever. So,
you had Sylvester Stallone, I know, was in one of them.
Yeah, but very 90s references.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fun movie. I mean, like I said, even going back and rewatching it, it's still a fun rewatch. There's a lot of fun scenes. We talked about the taking the test was a great scene. I just think we talked about it, but the Vincent D'Onofrio's transformation, the slow transformation is just, one of the best parts about this movie for sure. And the speech, his the way his voice changes and everything was just done really well. So, just about any scene that he's in, I really enjoyed. And so, yeah.
I don't remember what the context was, but I wrote the line down. We here at the FBI don't have a sense of humor that we're aware of.
Yeah. That was a good line.
Yeah. Because who was it? I think it was Edgar's wife. Isn't she the one that asks? And no, ma'am, we at the FBI don't.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Because you're just here to make fun of me, like the rest of them. No, ma'am, we here at the FBI don't have a sense of humor that we're aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into it. Final decisions: bag it, stack it, or trade it. Tim, why don't you go first?
Not necessarily because of the comic bookness of it, but I would bag this one because it's still a great movie and a lot of fun, and it's one that I enjoy watching on a regular basis. So for that reason, I will bag this one.
I mean, I think I'm going to bag it pretty much for the exact same reasons. I mean, I know it has nothing to do with the comics, nor do I really care. I enjoy this movie. And rewatching it again for the first time in a long time, it holds up for the most part.
Yeah, it really does.
You know what? We didn't talk an awful lot about like the special effects.
Yeah, very well done.
I will say there's some that, they're dated a little bit. But the amount of practical effects that are in this,
which always hold up better, typically hold up better than CGI stuff. Yeah.
Especially since you're still in the nascent days of CGI, where you've got some, and it's getting better by 97, but it's still not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So having much more practical makes it for the most part hold up. Yeah, you're right. There's a couple things that here and there, and obviously we could, if you watch any movie long enough, you can start nitpicking it. But it for the most part it holds up, and it's still a really fun watch. It's kind of hard for me to remember the difference between this one and the second one, but but there were parts I kept waiting for, and I was like, oh, it must be the second one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the less we say about the third one, I think the better. But
and the
Thanos is good in that one.
Yeah.
I say a bag it too. Again, this movie is good in spite of the comic.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've said, it's an under the radar Marvel movie when Marvel movie meant nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it wouldn't be until a year later when Blade would kind of start to put Marvel back on the map. And it's also coming out when, as Nicholas has said before, when comic book movies were about to die because Batman and Robin had come out. So I like that. It's a good one that's in there, and whether or not you really do think of it as a comic book movie or not, it's still just a really good movie.
Yeah. I will say now that you brought up that in the comic, it wasn't just aliens. I wish the sequels would have gone, kind of stretched that a little bit more instead of just being about aliens.
Don't you think though that if they were to have gone any other direction, that it would have felt cheap?
Yeah, if you didn't know that was the source material, like if it wasn't referenced at all, if it wasn't referenced at all in the first one, it would feel like, oh, you're just trying to do something different instead of,
or you would have just turned it into a big screen version of the X-Files.
Yeah, but also the whole notion of Men in Black, like the real life connection people have with who are the Men in Black, always has a connetion to aliens.
Yeah, I mean they do the real, and I'm using quotes here. Men in Black do have some paranormal, but mainly it's just aliens. I mean, most of the stories you read about the Men in Black, they are actually aliens themselves, not a secret government organization. And they're much darker and much more nefarious.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's what the comic is.
Right. Yeah.
So
if you want to get into the dark, nefarious side, last podcast on the left did a series on the real Men in Black, which has nothing to do with the movie and is not as family friendly. But
so it's not like the real Ghostbusters cartoon where it's like
no. I enjoyed this version of the Men in Black way more than the quote unquote real version of the Men in Black.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. So there you have it. Our runner-up for the best 90s comic book related movie, Men in Black. And now we've got, sequels we can do and all that, even though they're going to get further and further away from this comic because this one already did. But so Nicholas, you got anything coming up with Pop Culture Roulette you'd like to share?
Well, we should have recorded episode 100, but I have got a thing that I can't say much about happening right now that when I do reveal it, I think is going to be really exciting, but I hate being obscure because I can't stand it when people do it on Facebook. But like at this point, I'm pretty much legally not allowed to talk about it.
Right.
Exciting things coming.
Yes.
So hopefully it's going to be really exciting and not just a complete bust. But either way, we should be recording episode 100 here pretty soon.
Very nice. Very cool. And Tim, I know with the Halloween season approaching,
yes,
I know you've got some plans for the 80s Flick Flashback. So what you got?
Yep, Laramy, you're joining me for our first entry for the spooky season because we do have 3 Fridays in October. Or I'm sorry, there are 5 Fridays in October this year, so I get to do 3 episodes. So we're going to do Creep Show, the original Creep Show movie, which does have some
loose comic
book connection. And then I believe Nicholas will be joining me for Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Or is it A New Beginning, and then Halloween 5 is the one after that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Rate and review the show. We appreciate it. And again, we ourselves are getting into the holiday season as we've got stuff coming up. We're going to do From Hell is one that's going to be our Halloween one. And Blake is going to join me to talk about, even though they haven't turned it yet into any type of series or movie, we're going to talk about the comic book Something is Killing the Children. So that's a very interesting read, and this is a good time of year to talk about something like that. So tune in for that one, but we'll wrap things up for today. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.